What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another special edition of the Bombastic Podcast, presented by Natty State Sports and hosted by Andrew Ellis. I sure hope my audio is working, my video is working, and everything's fine. Because as you can see, we are still not in our normal studio space, not in our normal office. But I am told by reliable sources that by the end of the week we should be locked in. So appreciate you guys for bearing with us here and fighting through these tragic times while we do this stuff out of our bedrooms. It is what it is. I am not in John Neighbor's bedroom. I don't remember who it was that was giving me some shit about that last time. But as always, welcome to the show. I appreciate you for joining me. We are going to talk about Arkansas's series against Texas A&M, top 5 showdown, potentially a College World Series preview. So I look forward to that. We've got a lot of other topics to get into. We just got done hearing from DVH in his weekly press conference, previewing the series before they head to College Station. And he had a lot to say. He had a lot of very important things to say. He was in good spirits, and he announced a pretty major shakeup to the starting rotation. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard that by now, and I'm sure in the chat people will be making themselves known and know what the starting rotation is. If you've not heard, stick around because we will talk about that. But before we get going, I do want to give a quick shout out to our boys over at, drum roll, L. Jennings Law. Hey, Razorback fans. Just like Coach Cal never stops recruiting for the Hogs, you shouldn't stop planning for your future. And that is where L. Jennings Law comes in. Experts in estate planning, trusts, business planning, and elder law. With the same passion and dedication as our Hogs on the court and on the field, they'll help you manage your legal needs with precision. Don't wait until the buzzer, or don't wait until the ninth inning, by the way. Check out L. Jennings Law today and start securing your legacy with Arkansas's top estate planning team. Call L. Jennings Law. Their phone number is 501-501-WILL, which is 501-501-9455. Go check those guys out. We appreciate them for all they do. Shout out to L. Jennings Law. Let me move my stuff out of the way here. Let's see. And also just got a few housekeeping notes that I did want to talk about with you guys. So obviously today is Wednesday, May 15th. We had a show Sunday night after who did they play? Mississippi State, after the Mississippi State series. All right, blanked out for a second there. We did a Sunday reaction show. So if you missed that one, be sure you catch up with that one and all going on. Also, tomorrow, I think tomorrow, what's tomorrow? Thursday, we are going to try and do a pod of that nature, as in Sam Pittman, things of that nature, our football show. Curtis, Scotty, and I, we're going to try to keep you guys, we're going to try to just break down kind of the latest updates with the football roster and kind of give a little preview going into the summer, keep you guys updated, just to let you know, we still care about football. We still got that covered. Obviously, a lot's going on right now with the basketball team, the baseball team. We got softball in town this weekend, starting the NCAA tournament. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of things on the horizon, but football still matters. We will still get in to talk about a little bit of that. If you've not been keeping up with the pod at the Palace, I don't know what you're doing. They have been cranking out content, killing it, continuing to crush the competition and do everything well with the basketball team, cover all the recruiting, the latest with John Calipari. They also did not tell you that Cason Pryor was committing to Arkansas like a lot of people did. So if you want the real stuff, you want actual information, go to Pod at the Palace, go check out those guys, and they've been doing a really good job. Also, fans of the six pack, we will be returning with the six pack. We don't know for sure if it's going to be tomorrow or Friday, but in the next 2 days, we've got a lot of fun content coming. Hopefully by Friday, we'll be able to do our six pack from our new space, from our new location, new studio, which will be very, very exciting. Talking Beer says, feel free to skip the football talk. Well, on this show, trust me, we ain't gonna talk football. Trust me, we ain't gonna talk football. But you know, we do cover it all here at Natty State Sports, and so we will be doing that on our Pod of That Nature show. So we look forward to doing that. Let's see. Quick before we get into everything else, I do also just want to go ahead and give a shout out to Bombastic Podcast alum, a friend of the program, friend of mine, Will McIntyre, named to the SEC's community service team. Go check out the Razorback Baseball account. Just tweeted out, I believe they tweeted out a link to where you can donate to his cause that he's trying to build or raise money for. Every strikeout, he's donating $5 to cancer research, which is a great thing, obviously. And Will McIntyre pitches a lot for the Arkansas Razorbacks. He's been racking up those strikeouts. To be exact here, let's see, on the year, Will McIntyre has 60 strikeouts, 60 times 5. I guess that's $300. That ain't bad for cancer research. You should do what he's doing. You should be donating to that same cause. So we love that and we appreciate that. And we'll give him a shout out because he's on the SEC's community service team. Now let's talk this weekend. Just before we get in, I'll get to the comments here in a section here, but I did just want to quickly go over the SEC West and SEC overall title scenarios because obviously I know that for some of you that probably won't move the needle much. It doesn't matter much. You don't really care what's going on there. But Arkansas has a chance to win the SEC this weekend. They have a chance to win the SEC West, which they did last year, which, nobody, DVH always jokes and nobody really cared about that. But they did it last year. They've got a chance to do it again. And this is also the last time that the SEC will have a Western division. They will not be having divisions next year when they incorporate 2 new teams into the fold. So Arkansas could be the final SEC West baseball champions. But in order to do that, so they are currently 2 games ahead of Texas A&M in the standings. 0 Arkansas wins this weekend, meaning they would be getting swept, would lead to Texas A&M winning the SEC outright. That is the only scenario in which Arkansas does not win the SEC outright. If Arkansas gets 1 win this weekend, they will win the SEC West outright and be the SEC West champions. In that scenario, with 1 Arkansas win, they would also tie Kentucky if they were to go 0-3 and tie Tennessee if they were to go 1-2. I believe Arkansas and Tennessee, as of today, are both at 19-8. Kentucky's at 20-7. So, we can go through the scenarios here, but basically you see the gist of it is Arkansas needs to have 1 more win than Kentucky. So yeah, if Arkansas gets 2 wins, they will obviously clinch the SEC West outright, and they'll win the SEC outright if Kentucky goes 0-3. They'll tie with Kentucky if it's 1-2. And I do also, let me just go ahead and clarify this before anyone gets all up in a frenzy, because I feel like every year we have to relearn these lessons. There is no such thing as tiebreakers when it comes to winning the SEC. If Arkansas and Kentucky finished with the same record in conference play, they will be the co-SEC champions. There's not going to be they have the same record and Kentucky beat them in a series, so Kentucky gets it. They just split it. That's just how it's worked. Arkansas and A&M will not end up with the same record, but even if they did, which they cannot, but if they had, it still would not go to whoever won the series. It's just a thing. Arkansas's been on the good end of this at times. They've been on the bad end of this at times. They have been obviously on both sides. So it's they've benefited from it some years. Obviously, this is a year where Arkansas could hypothetically tie with Kentucky and still win the SEC title despite having not the head-to-head matchup over them. But all that really does is for seeding SEC tournament, which really doesn't matter. I mean, what I'm talking about now, SEC regular season title, doesn't matter a whole lot in the grand scheme of if you're going to win the national title. But SEC tournament seeding really doesn't matter. But I did just want to clarify that for anybody that's going to be confused and be like, wait a minute, we have to win all of our games and Kentucky has to lose too for us to no, they'll win the SEC. They'll still put up the 2024 on the outfield wall if Arkansas ties with Kentucky. But just going back through these things here. So if Arkansas wins twice, obviously again they win the SEC outright. Then obviously Arkansas goes 2-1. Kentucky gets swept by, let's see who they're playing here. They are playing Vanderbilt at home. Vanderbilt is 12-15. I don't think they're going to sweep Kentucky, but that should be a mostly pretty competitive series. So let's say Kentucky goes 1-2. If Arkansas sweeps, they are the SEC champions. That would be quite the impressive sweep there. I don't foresee that happening necessarily, but that would be the scenario. If Kentucky wins 2 of 3, then Arkansas would need to sweep if they wanted to win the SEC championship. But Kentucky somehow gets swept by Vanderbilt at home. All of a sudden, Arkansas's got a real chance there. And also, Tennessee is the team to keep in mind here because obviously Kentucky could get swept. Tennessee is hosting South Carolina at 13-14. Tennessee being 19-8. So that's another series to keep your eye on this weekend. But in terms of the SEC West, it's just Arkansas and A&M. I do think technically for SEC tournament seeding, if Arkansas were to get swept and Georgia were to sweep, let's see where they are at. They're playing Florida at home this weekend. If Arkansas and Georgia were to go 0-3 and 3-0, they would both be 19-11. I don't know how that would work with SEC tournament seeding, but like I've said plenty of times, I don't care about the SEC tournament. You shouldn't either, frankly. But yeah, if there's any clarity on the any confusion about the SEC tournament seeding, we could talk about all that. But I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown, a little something to monitor this weekend. But yeah, I'm assuming everyone wants to talk about the starting pitching situation. So I guess we will just jump right into it. Arkansas starting pitching announced by DVH like 15 minutes ago. Hagen Smith will go game one, obviously. Gage Wood will make his first SEC start in game two against Texas A&M. Game three is TBA, to be announced. So we shall see. We shall see what's going to happen. But yeah, there's definitely a shakeup. We'd all been kind of wondering, if something like this might happen. They had kind of gone with the same three guys all year, aside from the 1 week Mason Molina missed due to injury, where Ben Bybee took a spot, and now you could potentially see two new starters working into the Arkansas rotation. If I had to guess, I would probably say that Arkansas is going to try and avoid using Mason Molina out of the bullpen. If I had to guess. Now, will they? I'm sure. I mean, I think that's why there's a TBA there. I think it's very much in play. I think also he has not necessarily earned the right to be a confirmed starter just because it's the way that things have played out this weekend or the past couple weekends following his injury. So we'll see how it plays out. But if I had to guess, I would say they're probably still going to try and look at starting him in that game three. Just a guess. DVH did talk about it in the press conference today, saying he feels confident in him no matter when, and he feels like that's a role he could do well. It's just a matter of him pitching well, like regardless of whether it's starting, relief, whatever. He needs to pitch well. That just kind of is what it is. My boy Hayden Pound says Sunday starter better be Jay Woo Cho. He is our savior. Yes, I love Jay Woo Cho. It will not be Jay Woo Cho. Can confirm. Shout out to my boy H fan who's been, or I'm guessing the H there is Hog, but he's been very active in the comment section, very active on Twitter. Really appreciate him. He said, "Told you Gage Wood would start." And then he said, "I'll also tell you Sunday will be Tigered." Okay. He also says, and Ozzy, before you get in here, Gabe Gackle's not starting this year. I actually don't disagree with that take. But yeah, so speaking of Brady Tiger, DVH also talked about him a little bit. They got him looked at this weekend. I know there was a lot of speculation about, his velo dropped, which it has kind of fluctuated a little bit this year. A little bit of speculation of, his velo's dropping. He hadn't been pitching well. Maybe he's banged up. He's had arm issues in the past. Like maybe something's going on there. DVH said they got him looked at, and they were kind of told that it's all clear. Like he's all good medically. Like he doesn't have any structural damage, doesn't have anything weird going on. But he also, the last thing he said about Brady Tiger is, we might just rest him. And I think DVH said that not on accident. I think it's very much in play that they just simply rest him. I think if they don't rest him this weekend, they will probably rest him in Hoover. And I think they should probably rest a few different arms in Hoover. Because it's just kind of, Hoover's the time to rest arms, especially when you're in the situation Arkansas is in or should be in after this weekend for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think that's, this situation isn't stunning. I think we all kind of sensed that something might switch up. We didn't know if it would be Tigered and Molina or Tigered or Molina. We knew that Gage Wood had been pitching pretty well and kind of worked his way into this mix. And, there you have it. Gage Wood's going to make his first SEC start. And obviously Gage Wood made his first career start not too long ago, about a month ago, on a midweek game, pitched really well, has been pitching pretty well in some extended outings. So I think this is a big opportunity for the sophomore right-hander to really, stake his claim to a starting spot, but also just kind of make it clear and evident he's one of the guys you can count on this team. So that's a awesome opportunity for him, and we'll see how these other guys respond. Also, I thought that DVH made a pretty pointed message towards those other starters after the Kentucky series when he said, "Hey, Gage looks like he's ready to take someone's job." And I think this week's developments kind of show you DVH wasn't lying. And that message clearly had not been received at that point. So here we go. It's Gage Woods getting the ball, and we'll see how it works out. And we'll also see what the leash is like. But in terms of game three, like I said, if I had to guess, just gut feeling after, I've had 15 minutes to process this or whatever, I would assume that Mason Molina is still the guy that they are hoping can start in that game three. He hasn't come out of the bullpen since his freshman year. So I think it's a very risky maneuver moving him to the bullpen. And I wouldn't be stunned if Brady Tiger didn't pitch at all this weekend, just based on, the way things have played out, the way that DVH talked about him just now, about him possibly needing some rest with his arm issues in the past. I wouldn't be stunned if they maybe give him a little bit of a week off, or maybe if they do, it's just going to be 1-2 innings kind of in relief, try and get him back on track a little bit. I could see that. Shout out to my guy Flying Bacon. Says, Andrew, you got to get some up on those walls, bro. Yeah, I mean, look, this is also my guest room. This isn't my room. Like, this isn't where I like spend my time and do anything. I could not turn my actual bedroom into a studio because I have a girlfriend who calls those shots, and I don't think she would have been, she would have been as thrilled with me just having y'all. From where y'all can see, there's nothing in front of me. There's just stuff all over the floor because I had to clear out a bunch of random stuff, make some space, clear out a table, and so it's just kind of a little bit of a makeshift thing. But this is not a permanent situation. We are hopefully, this is the last show I have to do in this room. That would be nice. H fan wants to know, did he mention Jason Jones? He didn't mention Jason Jones. But he also didn't really talk about the outfield situation. Like, he wasn't really asked about it. And I did think about it. There was, in these press conferences, I try to do the respectful thing where I ask 2 questions and then I pass it on to the next person. Not everyone abides by that. At this point, nobody does. So there was really not any chance for us to get more than 2 questions in. Since I tried to be respectful, I will not do that next time. But I definitely was curious about the outfield situation. And my third question I wanted to ask him was, do they feel comfortable playing Peyton Holt in center field every day? Which obviously they've been playing Peyton Holt in center field a lot. He's made the deke. He made the dive and play. He's been on SportsCenter a ton. The fans of SportsCenter probably think that Peyton Holt is like all defensive team in center field. But I frankly just wanted to get DVH's thoughts on that, because if they feel confident defensively playing Peyton Holt every day in center field, it probably closes the door on Ty Wilmsmeyer being in the everyday lineup down the stretch. And I also think it paves the way for someone like Jason Jones, Ross Lovich to keep getting at-bats. Obviously, we think Kendall Diggs, who said yesterday on a radio show that he is back to 100%. He doesn't feel any pain. He just simply needs to figure it out at the plate. So I think that's encouraging news. Whether it's true or not, we don't know. I guess we'll see. I think Kendall, I think he's been battling a little bit. And I don't know, who knows if his estimate of 100% is accurate or not. But I think that's encouraging in terms of Diggs isn't going to miss an extended period of time. He's not someone that you have to wonder is going to be in the lineup down the stretch. So yeah, I think that, Peyton Holt playing center field is kind of the key to all the fun alternatives with that outfield. Joey Ellis says new Manscaped sponsorship. Not a new one. We've had our Manscaped situation going on for a minute. I'm doing this on not our normal OBS computer that has all of my graphics in it. I only have a limited supply. But no, we've been on board with Manscaped for a little minute. And shout out to the shirt. This is the shirt. Curtis wore this to Whole Foods, which, by the way, shout out to Alumni Hall. Whole Foods is right by Alumni Hall. And shout out to Alumni Hall, because I took my parents there the other day and looked cool because they gave me a cool little discount. But also, my mom got her a nice little fanny pack. My dad got 2 shirts. They had a nice little 2 for $38 sale, so that was cool. But yeah, Curtis wore this same Manscaped shirt to Whole Foods, and he said he kept noticing people looking at him funny, and it's because the back of this shirt, well, I guess, and the front of this shirt says "Your balls will thank you," and it says it on the back in like big letters there. It is what it is. I didn't plan on going anywhere important today, so I was like, I'll just wear this one. Won't get weird looks. Mary Ellen, she knows ball. She says, I don't know how I feel about bullpen Mason Molina. We know what Brady can do out of the pen, but Mason hasn't done it in like 3 years, so he's kind of the wild card in my opinion. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that, and that's part of why I think that TBA, I think it's a real TBA, because I think they will play it how they need to play it this weekend, but I think ultimately I will be a little surprised if I see Mason Molina actually come out of the bullpen this weekend, especially given just how DVH was talking there a little bit. It seemed like Brady Tigert might need a little bit of rest, or they're a little bit more concerned about his ability to go out there and start and take on a long workload. I think, like you said, we've seen Brady Tigert pitch well out of the bullpen. It has been a little minute, but I think that's something that he feels a little bit comfortable doing. Who knows? Maybe that can unlock something, in his game a little bit. Shout out to my boy Ozzy Maverick, says, "Hey guys," that's his catchphrase for those that watch all the Ozzy content, which if you're not, you should be. And then Mary Ellen says, also wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Mason at all this weekend. Yeah, and then Mason Molina, I should also mention an important factor here. He had that foot injury, for those that don't remember. Now, look, I'm not trying to make speculation. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what Mason's foot is like, but if y'all remember correctly on this show, I remember saying I thought that the injury, when I was told about it behind closed doors, it sounded a little bit worse than rolled ankle. Oh, he's fine. He maybe will miss this week, but he's probably, good. whenever I first heard about it, people were like, "Oh, he broke the foot. He might be back by Hoover." Like that kind of talk. Obviously, they ended up being wrong, but I think maybe perhaps he was a little bit more hurt than he let on these last few weeks. Who knows? So, at this point, I mean, this is the time of year. I know you're playing a top 5 opponent, and there's a lot on the line this weekend. Two fan bases that hate each other. Everyone's kind of been eyeballing A&M all year long. If you've listened to this program, I've been kind of telling you that's the team to watch in the West. And so I know you want to win this series, but I also think you want to win in June. And so I wouldn't be stunned at all if they get a little experimental this weekend, which I think them switching up the rotation the way they have is kind of evidence that they're going to do that. Hayden Pounce says, I kind of wish we would have just stuck it out with Tiger and Molina. Seems awful late to be shaking things up. Maybe a little bit, but I also just think in 2022 it worked. What's crazy is in 2022, they had used the same rotation almost the entire year with Connor Nolan, Jackson Wiggins, or Connor Nolan, Hagen Smith, Jackson Wiggins in that order. They did that every week until the final week of the season when they finally just said, we're going to go Will McIntyre game 2 and then kind of TBA it. So there you go. Like sometimes it just works out that way. And then obviously moving Will McIntyre to the starting rotation is really was a big deal for this team. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if like a change this late in the season necessarily disqualifies you from going on a run down the stretch. It might be kind of what you need to unlock that run. But I also think that these next 2 weekends with Hoover and the last weekend of the season, this is kind of the time when you do want to just get a little weird, especially if you're giving guys rest, which it seems like they might be doing. But who knows? We'll see how it plays out. Talking Beer says, I hit the like button and it made me even more handsome. You guys should try it. You got to take him at his word. He never tells lies. So check that out. H fan says Hagen win the West tomorrow. Yeah, that's pretty much what it comes down to. Like I said, Arkansas just needs literally just one win in order to clinch the SEC West title. And so yeah, we will see if Hagen Smith can get it done. But I could think of worse situations to be in than having Hagen Smith on the bump with a chance to clinch the SEC West title and potentially an SEC title later in the weekend. But yeah, I mean, Arkansas's gone a lot of weeks this year where they win game 1 and then the next 2 are a little bit harder. This particular weekend, I think if they win this game 1, they will exhale a little bit. I think that would be really nice. Let's see. Bo says biggest threat in Omaha, Tennessee, A&M, or the field, assuming we/they make it. I would be tempted to say the field just simply from an odds standpoint of just this tournament, like the SEC baseball NCAA or the NCAA baseball tournament. It's very rarely like best teams just went out. There's always weird stuff that kind of happens. There's weird unforeseen things. Like Omaha's always kind of a little bit chaotic. Last year you had like a lot of the top 8 seeds there besides Arkansas. But like a lot of years, it seems like it's a little bit just chaotic. So it's like, I would set the odds at like 50-50 of both of those teams even making Omaha, frankly. Like, I think if you look at like literally betting odds, I think Arkansas is like right around even odds. I think A&M's right around even odds there too, where just to make the College World Series. And so I would say the field, but just simply from an odds standpoint. But in terms of overall teams that have a chance to knock off Arkansas, I think A&M is I think they've been the team to beat like kind of all year. It's either, I think those are the 3 teams there. I'll be honest with you, I don't take Kentucky that seriously as a national title contender, which may make me sound stupid and naive considering they beat Arkansas in a series like 2 weeks ago. There's something about Kentucky that feels a little bit fraudulent. But who knows? Kentucky's never been to Omaha. Would honestly be nice to see them get there. We'll see that. My boy Curtis Wilkerson, you guys may know him. He says more like Gage Good. Am I right? That is right. Shout out to Curtis for being the investigative journalist who got the salmon story out of Gage Wood, who asked him about that in Arlington and led to the whole thing where he found out that Gage Wood eats salmon. So luckily, that's the good news for the Wood family or for whoever it is that supplies Gage with his salmon. You don't have to wonder. He's going to pitch on Saturday or Friday, I guess I should say. And actually, weather might mess that up. So who knows? But at least you know what game he's scheduled to pitch. He's going to pitch game 2. Pretty nice. H fan says Wake Forest They're the only pitching staff that can compete with us. Well, interestingly enough, Wake Forest is kind of struggling on the mound a little bit this year. Now, Wake Forest rakes, and they're playing really well down the stretch here. They just swept Clemson, I believe. Wake Forest is a problem, and Chase Burns is as good of a non-Hagen pitcher as you'll find in the country. But I think Wake Forest, I don't take them. I mean, I'm not saying that they can't make a run, that they can't beat Arkansas. Clearly a really good team, but I think Wake Forest, the reason that a lot of people kind of think they might be a little fraudulent is their pitching depth is not the same as it was last year when they made that run to the semis before losing to LSU. But you know, Beers on Head Pod says, like what I've seen from TBA this year. His off-speed stuff is filthy. Well, man, TBA last year accounted for like almost half of Arkansas's starts, if not more. Seemed like every year or every week it was like Hunter Holland, TBA, TBA, or Hagen Smith, Hunter Holland, TBA, or Hagen Smith, TBA, TBA, or whatever. Just kind of is what it is. H-Fan says Mason isn't starting Sunday. Yeah, nobody's starting H-Fan because they don't play on Sunday, or at least they're not currently scheduled to. But anyways, interesting. He's H-Fan seems pretty adamant that it's going to be Brady Tigert. Flying Bacon's 1044 says, you think they'll piggyback Mason and Molina and Tigert game 3 to see if they can get them rolling? I think that's an option. I think they might. I think they definitely could do something like that in Hoover, like they did that last year with Holland and Smith. They did it a few times. You know, when Smith was coming out of the bullpen. Who knows? Maybe. But ultimately, I think it's just going to be kind of. They're going to hope to get a starter going. Like I think they're going to do whatever they can. I mean, Gage Wood. We'll see what he does in his opportunity this weekend. But I think they are hoping that at least one of those guys, Molina or Tigert, can legit return to being a consistent every weekend starter that gives you 5-6 innings. But we'll see. I think you know, there's going to be plenty of experimenting, so we'll see on how it plays out and how they decide to deploy those guys. I think you know, and then think about this last year with Tiger when he was returning from injury, they piggybacked him with Will McIntyre, who is another guy to consider in this whole situation of who's going to start, who's going to do whatever. I think there's always room for stuff like that. But honestly, I just think they need to get they need to get depth and like length out of somebody. You know, someone's just got to step up and give them 4 innings in game 3, 4 5 innings, whatever it is. You know, it would just be nice to see. And all these guys are capable, you know. But who knows? The longer this continues, the longer we have to ask these questions, and this is what it is. H-Fan says, Wood, 5 innings pitched, 2 runs, 7 Ks is my prediction for Friday. Don't hate that. Don't hate that. Ryan McDaniel says, damn it, Andrew, you're early. Yes, I am early, and I tried to put out a little bit of a teaser, like a little bit of a clarification on that on Twitter. Sorry if that message didn't get around. I initially scheduled the stream for 1:30 because I was like, oh, you know, presser at noon. Who knows what'll be going on? And I thought Curtis and Scotty might be going around here sometime around this noon time. They ended up doing their show a little bit earlier, get it done at 11. Got it out there, which, by the way, you guys should check out. But yeah, I was thinking I wanted to give myself plenty of time, but then the more I thought about it, I was like, we'll be done with the presser at like 12:20. So it's like I could probably go live at 12:30. But so yeah, I did jump the gun a little bit. You'll just have to scroll back and catch up with us there, Ryan. But appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, Ryan McDaniel says Hudson White no longer missing. Yeah, not only is he not missing, would you guys believe me if I told you that Hudson White leads Arkansas in batting average during SEC play? He's hitting 321 during SEC play, on base percentage right at 400, slugging 474. He's now got 3 of his 4 home runs have been in SEC play. I mean, you know, it's kind of tough at this point to even tell that he was ever struggling. But how about that? Peyton Holt also hitting 308 in SEC play. Thought you guys would appreciate that. Let's see. Ryan McDaniel says Wood starts game 2 with a piggyback, maybe Fouch, Tigert to the pin. Yeah, Fouch, I'll be honest with you guys. I've seen a few people talk about Fouch in terms of like an extended role or whatever. I do not, and I want to make this as clear as I can. I do not want to see Christian Fouch's role change at all. He's a high leverage righty who throws really hard, 1 to 2 innings at a time. I just think that's the way they've used him. It's clearly the correct way to use him. He's got an ERA under 1. I would not mess with his role at all. I would not be trying to extend him any or like, you know, any of that kind of thing. But it is what it is. He also Ryan also says he thinks we will see. He says Flaherty, but I think he means Faraday, Jake Faraday, in a higher leverage spot this weekend. 100%, man. He's earned it. His ERA is now under 1, I believe. I could be wrong on that. Let me check that out. Yeah, he's at 0.96 on the year in 9 1/3 innings. Got 17 strikeouts. He's not giving up a run in SEC play. I put out a tweet the other day about just the Arkansas bullpen and just what they've done this year. So Fouch, Faraday, and Hewlett have combined for, I think it's like 18, 19 innings, 1 earned run in SEC play. Unreal stuff. Obviously, Gabe Gackle. Gabe Gackle has a better ERA against SEC teams than he does against non-SEC teams, which is pretty insane. He's got a 1.80 ERA in SEC play. Opponents hitting like 154, 155 against him. Good strikeout numbers. He's been lights out. I think he's got like 7 saves in SEC play alone. And then Will McIntyre, who has had his ups and downs and all that, still has racked up 3 saves and 4 wins in SEC play. He got 2 wins this past weekend. And he's thrown a ton of innings. So he's given them a lot in SEC play. Gage Wood now has started. Gage Wood has thrown 9 1/3 over the last 2 weekends. And he had only thrown 6 innings prior to that in SEC play. So he's starting to really give them some depth. I think his SEC RA is 3.77. They've got options, man. I mean, Cooper Dawson's given them some good SEC innings. Parker Coyle the other day pitched really well. Like, this Arkansas bullpen completely changed the complexion of this past weekend series. And I think that has to give you a lot of confidence moving forward. And so, yeah, it's good to see some of those guys like Faraday getting going here down the stretch. Camo Hog says Gage Wood on that 2022 Will McIntyre arc. Yeah, man, I really I think that's possible. I mean, like I mentioned that season just in about how it was that late in the season when they switched up the rotation. Wouldn't that be something on a team that has Will McIntyre for Gage Wood to become the Will McIntyre? But I mean, if you remember down the stretch last year, I mean, Will we've referenced it a lot that Will pitched 7 innings in Omaha in an elimination game. Like, that's massive. And nobody would have expected that 2 months before it happened. But he ended up, by the end of the year, he was your legit number 2 guy, which is just pretty crazy to think back on. Gage Wood is now starting in that game 2 role. If this were a super regional game, Gage Wood would be pitching game 2. Like, it's pretty crazy to see how it's played out, and not really something that I think any of us really saw coming necessarily. Especially because just this year, none of us really thought we had to think about the starting rotation much. Like, I forget who it was that brought up Will McIntyre starting down the stretch the other day, and it kind of threw me off because I hadn't considered it in so long. I hadn't considered Arkansas needing to make a move in their starting rotation, but here we are. Joey Ellis says, talking about the left field situation, best case scenario is obviously Jason Jones figures it out at the plate, but I'm curious why Edmondson hasn't gotten the nod over Lovich. Simple answer for you, Joey. Will Edmondson's like 0 for his last 20. That's the answer. Maybe he'll get another shot, but he's been getting shots, and he had not done a ton with them. We'll see if they can get anybody going, but I think you're going to continue to see a little bit of a musical chairs there. Let's see. Joey follows up with, feel like Edmondson showed flashes of being very clutch earlier in SEC play. That is true. But then he went 0 for 20 after that. All 3 of those guys, like, in left field, so honest. I'm just going to go on a little bit of a rant here. I see it so often where you have these guys who are like, okay, so position players like 8 through 13 for Arkansas are all about the same level. They bring different things to the table, but they're all about the same level. So I think it's always kind of funny to me when people will be like, oh, Jason Jones, obviously you got to start him. Or Ross Lovich, obviously you got to start him. Or Will Edmondson, you got to start him. And it's just kind of a revolving door, and people act like it's an obvious situation. All these guys have been extremely, extremely, extremely average. So it's like, there's not really, if any of those guys had kind of emerged and made themselves clear that they were the guy, they would be in there. But none of them have done it to that point, which is why you keep seeing this musical chairs. Hopefully Jason Jones, I say hopefully, like, as a Jason Jones fan and as just like a fan of the team, like, hopefully he's the guy, because I think he's the highest ceiling option. Hopefully he's the one who can take it and run with it. Maybe give this offense a little bit of an extra punch down the stretch, but it is what it is. Jaron Garcia says, what did I miss? Just joined in. Super weirded out to see Brady and Molina out. Well, to be clear, they're not out like, injured. They're just not in the starting rotation. Although Brady Tiger, DVH did say might miss. He said he might rest him, but he said they got him looked at, no structural damage, no issues injury wise, and before you got on, I was also kind of sharing that I think gut feeling that TBA will turn into Mason Molina, assuming he doesn't pitch in the first 2 games there. But who knows? Beers on Heads Pod, who does great work. They say this doesn't feel like a shake things up move as much as it is a stretch out some arms and preserve and rest your core 3. I think that's true. I think it's definitely a lot more of a game changing, surprising shakeup than I guess the reaction would indicate. I guess I'm surprised that people are surprised by this necessarily, especially because you guys in the chat have been kind of calling for this for like a month. So yeah, I don't think this is like a. Someone asked earlier if it was or someone on the Discord maybe asked if it was a panic move, and I don't view it as a panic move at all. I view it as we just got to get these guys going, and I think like you said, Beers on Head, well educated ball knower. This is a nice opportunity, especially if Hagen gets that win on game 1, which he pretty much. When I say pretty much, he has done in every single start. Arkansas's won every single Hagen Smith start. If they win that first game and they've clinched the West, they've gotten to 20 conference wins, they've clinched a top 8 seed likely, I think you'll see them get a little weird. And frankly, this is the time of year to get weird. And it'd be nice if some of these older arms that they're counting on could kind of figure it out. And maybe this week will give them an opportunity to do it. Flying Bacon 1044 says if the Fayetteville Regional started this week, who is Arkansas head coach Andrew Ellis starting game 1, 2, and 3? So I'll be honest with you. I think game 1, I think I'm going Mason Molina. It's been in the regional. He had 10 strikeouts in a regional game last year. I want to say it was against Florida. I could be wrong about that, and I'm probably wrong about that. But at Texas Tech last year, he started a regional game, pitched really well, went 6 innings. He's got experience as a starter. He's had good starts for Arkansas this year. His stuff's pretty good. I think I trust him against a 4 seed, whoever that may be, especially because think about how dominant Mason Molina was in non-conference play. There was a point where his strikeout rates were pretty similar to Hagen, and you could have made an argument he was one of the better pitchers on the entire roster. And so I think I trust him, an older guy, in game 4. Of course, by the way, with a short leash. You saw Arkansas tried to do this with Caleb Bolden in 2021 and then immediately realized they didn't want to do that. I think the leash will still be short, but I think you say, hey, if we can't beat our 4 seed with one of these other guys, I'll tell you who I'm not starting against the 4 seed is Hagen Smith. Literally anyone but Hagen Smith. You could talk me into Gage Wood. You could talk me into Molina. You could talk me into Tigert. You could talk me into Will McIntyre. You could probably even talk me into Ben Bybee. Like, really. I just don't think you throw Hagen in that game. I think you try to piece it together and bullpen it if you have to, especially because you would have, days in between, assuming that Hagen Smith gives you 5, 6, 7 innings in that game 2 against a 2 seed. I think, in a regional, you're going to need to use a lot of your top arms twice, especially your bullpen arms, I'm assuming. So I don't hate that first game being a bullpen game, especially if they're able to if the offense is able to take care of business and get you up 10, 12 to 1, 12 to 2, or whatever it is. And then you can kind of just piece it together. But I would definitely not be going Hagen Smith in that one. So I guess I would go Mason Molina 1, Hagen Smith 2. And then between Gage Wood or Brady Tigert, whoever emerges out of this whole situation is who I go game 3. As of right now, it seems like Gage Wood is the guy that they like starting. So, hey, maybe that's who it is. We'll see how Brady Tigert looks out of the bullpen. I do want to see Brady Tigert out of the bullpen before, and I know we've seen it before. I want to see him out of the bullpen this year before I can make a real proclamation on what his role should be down the stretch, frankly. Tanner Harris, loyal listener, says Mother Nature does not like the possibility of us playing on ESPN2 on Thursday night. Yeah, it does seem that way. It does seem like they might have to move some things around, which just kind of become par for the course with Arkansas baseball. But we'll see how it works out. But yeah, that would be kind of a bummer if they didn't play on Thursday night. Camo Hog says Hagen versus Burns in Omaha is going to be this year's Skeens versus Louder. I think that's 100% accurate. Yeah, and I mean it's hard to argue with that. That's going to be really awesome if you get that combination. If you get that matchup in Omaha, that's a fun one, man. That's going to be a really fun one. Chase Burns is terrifying, man. He's been pitching really well this year. His stuff is unreal, but it'll be interesting to see. Tanner Harris says, hoping LSU gets swept this weekend. The committee will do anything in their power to get those bums in the tournament. So, okay, I'm glad you brought this up, Tanner. Let's go through just a real quick. We're just going to take a look at the SEC matchups for the weekend. You've got, we'll start Ole Miss 11-16 at LSU 10-17. Now, if you look at all the tournament projections and all that stuff, both of these teams are right on that bubble of last four in, first four out, of maybe can make the tournament, probably need a little bit of help. So there's a lot of stakes this weekend in Baton Rouge. One of those teams is likely going to be on the outside looking in. You'd assume the team that loses this series is probably going to be the one that's in trouble a little bit, or at least facing a lot of pressure going into Hoover next weekend. I mean, dude, I remember the days when 14-16, if you were 14-16 in SEC play, you really had it was going to be impossible just about for you to make the NCAA tournament. Now you've got 11-16 Ole Miss is kind of projected in, 10-17 LSU is on the first four out. If they sweep this weekend, they would be 13-17 in SEC play, and they'd probably be projected to make the tournament. It's just kind of the depth of the league and how this thing's played out. You've got 11-16 Florida, who again is kind of in that same mix, trying to secure their spot in the NCAA tournament. Would be pretty wild if them or LSU, either one of those, didn't make the tournament. It would be just, I mean, both of those teams are preseason top 5, 6, 7. You've got Florida at 16-11 Georgia, who's number 9, having a great year there, looking to lock up potentially a national seed. We'll see, but Florida, it's a lot of pressure for them. They cannot afford to drop that series. They just can't. You've got 13-14 South Carolina, number 24, a little bit more safe. You know, like they're going to make the tournament, but they're at 19-8 Tennessee. So, you know, they get roughed up this weekend. It's gonna be looking a little bleak. I know that fan base has been a little like disgruntled there. We'll see how their season shakes out. There's a lot of pressure on the Gamecocks down the stretch. They kind of have to make something happen. I think if they make the tournament and maybe win a game, maybe get to a regional final, they'll probably be fine. But that fan base ain't happy, man. I mentioned 12-15 Vanderbilt at number 2 Kentucky, who's 20-7. Vanderbilt's a team that I feel like every time I check SEC scores, they're getting beat 12-4 by somebody. That 12-15 record feels deceiving to me. I don't know what they are in their last month, but it seems like there was a point where they were the number 6 team in the country. So they've fallen off like a cliff. You've also got 12-15 Alabama, who is coming off of a series win against LSU, which is pretty important for them. Seems like it probably made Alabama safe for now. They're on the road at 6-21 Auburn. That's a tough one where like Auburn's already clinched a spot in out of Hoover. Like Auburn's not going to make the SEC tournament or the NCAA tournament or the NIT or the CBI or the whatever. They're just not playing baseball after this weekend. So who knows? Maybe they have one last little hoorah and can put Alabama in some trouble. Because, I mean, Bama's in a pretty much a no-win situation. If they sweep Auburn, you know, that gets them to 15-15. They'll be happy with that. But it's like you're probably supposed to do that. If you win 2 out of 3, which Arkansas did at Auburn, there's no shame in that. You're 14-16. You're feeling all right, but it's not great. And then if you lose the series to Auburn somehow, you're right back there on that bubble mix and you're a little bit nervous. Like, it just is what it is. We'll see if Auburn can throw a wrench in Alabama's plans in the Iron Bowl. You got 8-19 Missouri at 15-12, number 16 Mississippi State. I don't need to talk about that one. And then you've got Arkansas LSU or Arkansas A&M. So, you know, a lot of high stakes around the SEC this weekend. It'll be fun to see how it plays out. But I'm looking forward to it for sure. Bohannon says he was in a meeting, but he's here now. Unacceptable to attend a meeting over this stream. Bohannon also wants to know, how far will Eloy's first home run travel this weekend? How hard off the bat? Let's go 386 and like 103. It'll be just like a solid just rope out of there. Just whoosh. I think it'll be pretty straightforward. Christian Holt says 2-1. We beat A&M. Christian Holt, didn't you come up? You had some like, you said didn't you say last week it was like Arkansas sweeps Mississippi State and then beats A&M 2 out of 3. So maybe now they have to sweep A&M just to make true on your initial prediction. But Christian Holt, very confident in the Hogs. Griffin Underwood has his guess though. He says 108 miles an hour, 440 over the scoreboard on the left. Would be nice. Griffin Underwood wants to know, where did Dawson go? Well, he pitched last weekend. He came in and got an out or two. I think he faced 2 or 3 hitters. Dawson's been around. I mean, he's been pitching pretty well for the most part. He's had a couple outings really blow up on him. Like, he started the year, his first like 5-6 innings, hadn't allowed a run, and then he gave up like 2 or 3. Then he had an outing a few weeks ago. I think it was against Missouri State in a midweek where he gave up 4 and it just kind of blew up on him. They'll use him, and he's a high leverage righty, kind of in that Faraday Fouch echelon, but just not being used as often as either of those guys. But Dawson's been doing okay. He's a guy that I would argue is better than his ERA shows, just because almost every base runner he's allowed this season has scored. But Cooper Dawson, he's still around. He pitched this past weekend. He'll probably be. I'd imagine he would get a chance this weekend. Would love to see him get some looks in Hoover to kind of get him going a little bit, because I think he can definitely help them down the stretch. Let's see. Flying Bacon says, if they get a game or two rained out Thursday, Friday, can they play Sunday? And does it go to win percentage for the SEC title if they don't get them all in? I think they can play on Sunday. Now, this is a very rare weekend, and it would have to be to determine like seeding for the SEC tournament. I think they can play on Sunday, technically. Will they want to? No. I think both teams would probably try to avoid that. But yes, it does go to win percentage if it comes down to that. So that would be actually could actually throw a little bit of a wrench in this whole thing. And look, I would love to sit here and tell you I broke down all the numbers of how rain could affect it. I haven't. We'll just see how it plays out. If Arkansas only plays 2 games this weekend, maybe they go 2-0 and then they just stop. I think that would actually put them in a pretty good chance to win the West. Although I guess Kentucky would have to lose 2 games this weekend, but yeah, it'll be interesting. But and Griffin Underwood confirms, yes, they can play on Sunday. And that's normally not the case. With Thursday through Saturday series, they normally have a full, like, that's your getaway day, like you can't travel. That is not the case this weekend. They can play on Sunday, but I think they will try and make it not be that. Christian Holt says, I think it's a mistake to change the rotation this late. Tiger going to be no good now out of the bullpen. Well, my counterpoint would be that he hadn't been that great in the starting rotation, but I think it's definitely a risky maneuver. And frankly, I don't think it's out of the question that Tiger doesn't pitch this weekend and then starts in Hoover and then starts in the NCAA tournament. I think that scenario I just said is very much in play. We'll see. I think it. I could definitely see them resting Tiger, and if they do, it's only going to be, if they do pitch him, I think it'll only be for an inning or 2. But we'll see. We'll see. Griffin Underwood says Tiger's stuff is made for 2 innings of filth out of the pen. Cue No More Tears by Ozzy. He does have great music, doesn't he? He does. Yeah, it is very interesting though that it's like, he's not like a traditional closer, like a fire breathing Matt Cronin type of closer where it's just let it eat and throw mid to high 90s or anything. I know he ran it up in the 93, 94, 95 range as a freshman. Don't know where that went, but yeah, I mean, he does just seem like, I think just based on how few strikes he throws, him in the bullpen and really being able to kind of experiment, he gets ahead 1-2, him being able to flirt with a few pitches rather than kind of give in and try to keep his pitch count down and all that. I think that probably helps him. But I also ultimately just feel like every pitcher just about is better out of the bullpen than they are as a starter. I think that's like kind of a no-brainer a little bit. So we'll see if that gets him going a little bit. Ryan McDaniel says Stone Hewlett equals missing. Stone Hewlett also pitched in game 2 along with Dossett. I think they pitched right. I think Stone Hewlett and Cooper Dossett pitched in the same inning. So maybe you guys just missed that one inning. But in terms of Stone Hewlett, like that's kind of the MO, is they use him for 1 to 2 batters here and there, and situation did not arise where they needed that situation. Mississippi State had a lot of right-handed hitters, which I'm sure played into that a little bit. But Stone Hewlett and Cooper Dossett are not missing. Why are we lying here? Flying Bacon says, we've got to see Arkansas play most of the top draft prospects over the past 2 years. Who would you take overall? Condone, Caglianone, Bazana, Burns, or Hagen? I would have a hard time not picking Jack Caglianone. Uh, Although I really don't know. I'll be honest with you. I haven't done a ton of MLB draft research this year. I'm going to do more of that like down the stretch and really dive into the film and the numbers and all that. But just and one, I think if you're just drafting him as a hitter, I think he's the best hitter in the class. Like I really think he's that special of a bat. We're talking about a dude that doesn't strike out a ton. The ball comes off his bat like a BB gun, man. It's just insane. And I think the fact that he could even do anything as a pitcher, I don't think Jack is a big league starter ever in his career. Like, I just don't think he's as polished of a prospect as a pitcher. And when people compare him to Shohei Ohtani, sure, I get it in college baseball, yeah, but Shohei Ohtani is like a top 8 starter in the MLB in the world. So it's like, I don't think he's going to be able to start at the big league level as a pitcher at all. But I think he's a left-handed guy that could get some guys out, and I think he's a legit middle of the order bat. I just feel like you draft him and you figure it out. You just let him figure it out. Seems like a guy that would also benefit from being in college, and maybe if he decides to focus on one or the other, maybe that unlocks a different level of him. But man, who knows? I know the Oregon State kid's really good too, though. He's really good. The second baseman, Bazana. But ultimately, I really like Jack Caglianone. Isaac Falk says, I'd entertain Gackle game 3, assuming he'll be one of our starters next season, then Tigert and Molina piggyback. Look, I'm sure you got to consider it because I think Gabe Gackle is one of your best arms on the team, if not your second best arm. And I think he's absolutely a starter next season. But my only concern with it is if you move Gackle from the closing role, then you have to find someone to fill the closing role. And you're also moving Gage Wood to the starting rotation. So that removes one of your options right there. So you're probably looking at like Will McIntyre and Stone Hewlett being your closers, or Faraday. Who knows? I mean, Faraday's closed games before. I know Tigert has closed games in the past, but again, if y'all don't really trust Brady Tigert as a starter in the first inning, are you going to trust him in the 9th inning when the game's on the line? Personally, I would rather have a question mark in the first inning than I would in the 9th inning. Frankly, like I would just much rather have shaky starting pitching that you come clean up with a good bullpen rather than, a really good starting pitcher. But then once it gets to inning 6, 7, 8, 9, we got no clue what we're doing. I would rather just keep the guy who's been the best closer in the SEC in that role. That's just me. But Gabe Gackle is so talented, man. Like anytime, if you make a decision to pitch Gabe Gackle in any context, I'm not going to argue with it. So like, it is what it is. I can get behind that. Let's see. Let's see. H fan, all caps, says Jason Jones, misspelled his name, is much better than Ty or Ross or Will. Okay. There you go. But then Isaac also followed up and said, pending how the first 2 games go, penny for your thoughts. Yeah, I mean, and now you have me a little bit like maybe experimenting or just kind of seeing what happens. I could get behind that, especially because, if these other guys continue to struggle, who knows? But I just ultimately for me, it comes down to Gabe Gackle is such a good closer, and that's one of the best aspects of this Arkansas baseball team is having that guy to close games for you. I just wouldn't want to take that away from yourselves, Let's see. Flying Bacon says, Andrew, hope you're ready to talk that shit to your boys at LSU when Ole Miss knocks them out of the NCAA tournament this weekend. Yes, I do plan on doing that. Also, during the SEC tournament, I'm going to be on a bachelor trip with a couple former LSU baseball players, with a bunch of LSU fans. So I will have no issue. I will have no issue talking some noise if I have to. Ryan McDaniel says, have we announced the rotation? Yes, they announced the rotation. I'm glad that I get to break this news to you. Hagen Smith, game 1. Gage Wood, game 2. TBA, game 3. There you go. I see other people already got it to him. Never mind. Sorry. Addison says, if Gage pitches really well this weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the top candidate for game 1 of the regionals. Yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense. Especially, I just think like that game 1 is going to be kind of pieced together if it's not Hagen. Now, obviously, they might just say F it and go Hagen Smith game 1 like they've been doing all weekend. But who knows? HH wants to know who is the biggest baseball fan out of John, Curtis, and Scotty. This is a great question and an interesting one. So I got to clarify first off by saying Scotty has a playing background in baseball. So he's a baseball guy deep down there. He obviously is not as tapped in with it, as he had when he was like forced to cover it for other outlets or whatever. Obviously, when you work with Andrew Ellis, I'm going to do a lot of the baseball stuff. And obviously, Scotty does his basketball stuff and does his football and all this stuff. So it's like, I think he's, he doesn't have to cover it. So I think he enjoys watching it as a kind of a fan now. I think I would go, but John is a sneaky baseball guy, mostly because all the baseball players love John for whatever reason. They just, and he had a tailgate at his old spot where he had a tailgate that some baseball players would come by and he would, hang out with them, kick it with them. And him and Stovall are pretty good friends. So John's got a lot of connections to the baseball team and really is a huge Arkansas baseball fan. Now, he's not a baseball fan in general, but in terms of Arkansas baseball, John is slick. Like he's a Diamond Hawks supporter. Also, funny story, Jack Wagner, who we hung out with the other day at Tin Roof last week. I had interviewed Jack Wagner a long time ago when he first committed to Arkansas. Just kind of, this is back when I was a real Big J journalist and was like getting scoops on stuff. And I interviewed him for like 30 minutes on the phone and we talked and all this. And then I met him in the fall and he didn't say, "Hey, you're the guy who interviewed me this summer." He said, "Oh, you work with John Neighbors." I was like, "Yeah, I do work with John Neighbors, but also like, we know each other." But the baseball team, they like John Neighbors for whatever reason. Dr. Sauerbomb says, "Man, Big Tuna would be nice to have right now." I guess, yeah. Look, guys, I love Colin Fisher. I'm not gonna say anything crazy, but I'll just say this. You guys have seen a very different Colin Fisher than I have seen this year. I'll just leave it at that. H-Fan says, if we start Hagen game 1, cancel the hotel. It's basketball season. So I guess he thinks that he doesn't have faith in Arkansas's non-Hagen pitchers to get them through a regional. Will Hagen lead in Arkansas in all-time strikeouts out of the weekend? I think he needs 10 to tie it, and I'm picking the over. I think it's going to be it's going to come down to the wire because A&M likes to strike out. They're like top 3 or 4 in the SEC in strikeouts, which, by the way, we will talk before we get out of here. I will do a quick little rundown of just A&M and their team and all that stuff. But I think Hagen's going to, especially because Hagen's coming off of one of his less great starts of the year. So I think he's going to be pretty motivated. And against this lineup, he'll be pretty motivated. I think he'll end up with 10. I think he'll at least tie it with 10. I agree with you. Let's see. Flying Bacon says, looking forward to the SEC tournament. You are alone in that category, brother. You are alone. Top 4 in real good shape for top 8 seeds, and a lot of teams desperate for wins and shipment. Okay, yeah. In the non-Arkansas context, yeah, sure. I like watching the games. I will hopefully be watching it from a beach, and that'll be pretty fun. But yeah, the SEC tournament. I've been a few times now. It's a fun thing. It's something you should experience once as a fan. Now, doesn't have to be a yearly trip. Doesn't have to be we got to go to Hoover. But I think everyone should do it at least once and just experience it. It is a fun atmosphere usually. Let's see. Ryan McDaniel says, how would you feel if Tigert and/or Molina don't pitch this weekend? Then we exit Hoover before they get a chance to pitch. I'd feel okay about that, especially in Tigert's case where I feel like he could benefit from that rest. But what I don't think is the latter could happen necessarily. Like, I don't think there's a scenario in which Mason Molina doesn't pitch at all this weekend and then doesn't pitch at all in Hoover. Him or Brady. Now, if they did that with Tigert, it would mean obviously, they're probably resting him. If that happened, then I would be like, I guess they really have just phased Mason Molina out of the pitching staff completely. I just don't necessarily see that happening, especially because if you go into Hoover, I think Mason Molina, if he didn't pitch in this weekend, I would assume he'd probably start game 1 of Hoover. So, who knows? But if they went through these next 2 weekends without using either guy, I don't know what I would think, because that would just mean to me that they really have lost faith in their ability to contribute at all, which I don't necessarily anticipate being the case. Yeah, a lot of people are coming around to Big Mac. Will McIntyre as a starter. I like that. Kim Jones wants to know, where can I buy a Natty State Sports hat? I'll tell you, Kim Jones, go to nattystatesports.com and you'll have to scroll through all of our beautiful articles. But at the bottom of that page, there should be a little shop section that's got our t-shirts, got this hat, we also have like a trucker hat version of this that has like a little, like the little trucker design. But also, Kim, I might just have to bring you one. I might have to call in a favor with the bosses and just, see if we can make that happen. But we'll make sure you get a Natty State Sports hat for sure. Leslie Byram wants to know, I came in here late, real late. Who's going to be the starting pitcher Sunday? Nobody's starting Sunday because they ain't playing Sunday. But game 3, I would imagine it's probably going to be Mason Molina. That's just my gut feel, but I'm also wrong a lot. So who knows? Will McIntyre's name's been floated around here lately. Wouldn't hate seeing that. Let's see. Flying Bacon wants to know, did A&M set a rotation for the weekend? I know they've been shaking it up after Prager the last couple weeks. So let's talk about A&M real quick. To answer your question, by the way, if they have, they didn't do it before I started this show, but I think the SEC posts them a little bit, so I'm sure it'll be out. It'll be out after this show concludes, and we'll have a better idea. But yeah, like you said, Ryan Prager is like A&M's guy. He entered SEC play with a 0 ERA. It's now up. I think his ERA is like for the year, it's like in the mid 2s or something like that. Does have a 4.11 SEC ERA. So it's not like he's been exactly lights out, but lefty, 90 to 92, fastball has a lot of carry, has a like changeup that has like a 50% whiff rate. So against right-handed hitters, that changeup is going to be a problem. And then obviously any lefty's tough on lefties. So Ryan Prager, not an easy day at the office. He's been their guy though, giving them a ton of depth. 46 innings pitched in his 9 SEC starts, so a little bit more than 5 per. He's gone 7 in a couple of those. Their 2 other starters for the most of the year had been Justin Lampkin and Tanner Jones. Tanner Jones, they took out of the rotation last weekend. Both of those guys have ERAs over 8 in SEC play. And Lampkin, they gave the game 2 start last week, and he gave up like 5 or 6 runs in an inning and a third. So frankly, A&M situation is not too dissimilar from Arkansas. I think that's also important to the context for us to note that, we all think like, oh, Arkansas, we feel really good about our top 3 guys, but after that, we don't feel as good. Yeah, that's kind of how everybody feels. We feel really good about the top 6 hitters in the order, but then after that, it gets a little sketchy. Yeah, it's kind of how everyone feels. So A&M's kind of right there in that same mix. I mentioned their other 2 starters that had the over 8 SEC ERAs. What is that dude's name? Oh, Shane Sadao, SDAO. That's what this cat's name is. He has been the guy who was like one of their main bullpen arms. Him and Evan Ashenbank were like their lefty 1-2 punch out of the bullpen. They have now moved Sadao to a starting role. I believe he made his first start of SEC play last weekend, went 7 scoreless against Ole Miss. He's got, weirdly enough, stuff-wise, maybe a little bit more like velo, a little bit more juice than Prager. Prager's a little bit more sharp, but Sadao's numbers on the year, great ERA right around 2. He's been really good in SEC play, coming off of a really good start. So, I think they've probably settled that he's one of their top guys. And, that third starting spot is a little bit sketchy, but their bullpen has been a real plus. So Evan Ashenbank is the guy I just mentioned, lefty, same kind of profile, 90, 91, 92, slider change. That's kind of the model they like. They had a lefty a few years ago, or in 2022. I can't remember his name. Someone in the chat maybe will, but they used him religiously, and he was the same thing. Lefty, 90, 91, maybe 92, mix of speeds, throws a changeup to righties. Like, that's kind of the Schlossnagel prototype, I guess. But they also have a guy, Chris Cortez, who I believe started games for them last year. He's a big-time talented arm. He'll touch like 97, 98, 99. I think he's touched 100 this year. Hard throwing righty. He's also given them a ton of innings in SEC play, one of their top bullpen arms. But him and Ashenbank are kind of the go-to 1-2 punch now. Outside of that, they don't like A&M doesn't do the thing where they use 10 pitchers on a weekend, all in real situations. They have like 5 guys they trust, and they pretty much just ride those dudes. But plenty of talent on the roster, plenty of talent on the pitching staff. I would say this though. So if you look at the overall like SEC numbers, A&M, so Arkansas is obviously first in a lot of these pitching categories, and A&M is usually anywhere from third to fifth or sixth or somewhere in that range in the SEC in terms of pitching. So you see that and you think, okay, Arkansas is the best pitching staff in the SEC, but A&M's not far behind there at 3-4 or whatever. Not exactly true. So like ERA, Arkansas's 3.95, A&M's 4.88. So like almost a full run there. Opponents hit 227 against Arkansas. They hit 258 against A&M. Arkansas's got 302 strikeouts. A&M's got 249. So like there is a pretty large discrepancy. Like just so we're clear, even though A&M is clearly one of the better pitching staffs in the SEC, pretty well rounded. But I'll also, of course, the flip goes to the offense where it's maybe even more lopsided of a gap. A&M is consistent, well-rounded. Their top, all 9 of their qualified hitters on their stats page are hitting 288 or above. Now, obviously, they'll start some different guys. They have some like defensive replacements, guys that you might see this weekend who aren't hitting 288. But all of their batters who have enough at bats to qualify are basically hitting 290 or above. And a lot of them are hitting 310, 320, 330. I think they have a guy hitting 347 with like 16 home runs. Just a lot of talent up and down the order. They've obviously got the 2 big guys in the middle, Jace Laviolette and Braden Montgomery, the Stanford transfer who's been unreal. Their leadoff guy, let me make sure I'm not botching his name real quick. Let me make sure I'm not botching this dude's name. Let's see. Oh, Grahavik. I don't know. Grahavoc. Grahavik? Anyways, he's got 18 home runs, 12 of which have happened in SEC play. So you've got Laviolette with 27 home runs, Braden Montgomery with 24 home runs, and then the leadoff guy, Grahovic, has 18. So it's like right off the bat, you've got to deal with some issues with A&M. They have a decent amount of power all around the lineup too. I think they have 5 guys who have at least 9, and I think Arkansas only has 2 of those. Those top 3 hitters that I just mentioned, though, each have more than 12 or more home runs in SEC play. To put that in perspective, Arkansas does not have a single player on the roster with 12 home runs this year. Mostly because they didn't play Jason Jones all year, but I kid. But so I mean, that just tells you. I think Daniel Shee actually was asking my boy DVH a question today, and was like, "Yeah, they have as much power in the top 3 as you guys have as a team." Because Daniel Shee is not scared of your favorite head coach. I'll just tell you right now, he's not. But so that's kind of the rundown on A&M a little bit. Their pitching the last couple weeks has been a little sketchy, but I also will point out with A&M, all of their sketchy weekends have come on the road. I think they're 32-2 at home, and that's right around what Arkansas is, or maybe it's 33-3, but like right around there. They also are 25-0 against non-conference opponents, which is pretty wild. I mean, Arkansas went undefeated in midweeks. I guess they lost a couple games to non-conference opponents, but it's like if A&M won the national title, they could likely finish the year undefeated against non-SEC teams, which is just kind of wild to wrap your mind around. I will say this with A&M, though. They really beat up on bad teams. And I'd say that's the biggest difference between these two teams is that like A&M, if you make mistakes, they really make you pay. Really make you pay. And I mean, we've seen that. We've seen them even in SEC play have games where they just really put it on teams. I mean, they scored a ton against Alabama on the road. They scored 19 in the game against Georgia this year. Like they've really hammered some teams. They scored 14 in the series finale against LSU even last week. This is a team that like when they get to your weak spots, they can expose you really quickly. But we have seen their lineup maybe, look a little bit more human in SEC play than maybe they did early in the season when these guys were just going yard every game, left and right. But it is what it is. And then Daniel Shee defends himself here. And look, Daniel, you were 100% right. I love that you said that. I love that you're just not scared of these head coaches, man. And you're just like, hey, these guys are better than you. What do you think? But he has the stats there. Grahovic, Laviolette, and Montgomery have 69 home runs. Arkansas has 70 for the year. So it's pretty wild, man. It's pretty wild. Camo Hog. We're going to get out of here in a few seconds here. But Camo Hog says saw some A&M. I guess that's supposed to be A&M accounts talking about avoiding Hagen Smith. Luckily, he can't be avoided in the postseason. He also can't be avoided tomorrow night. They're going to have to face him at least once, and that might be enough to get Arkansas the SEC West title locked up. But yeah. Let's see. Flying Bacon says, and we don't have to listen to their stupid ball 4 chant. I will say this. I want to give now look, I'm never, ever, ever going to give A&M credit as a program, as a school, as a community, as anything. But everybody in college baseball is starting to do the ball 4, ball 5 chant, including Arkansas fans. If you've been participating in the ball 5 chant, you are a problem. You are a part of the problem. Do not do those, and don't start blowing bubbles after home runs either, because that's what A&M does. It's something that we've all it's a cool thing that A&M does. The ball 5 chant is cool, but it's cool that it's like their thing. We can't just steal that. We just can't. I'm sorry. We also can't do the swag surf thing anymore. The Beers on Ed Pod said, I want to party with Daniel Shee. Daniel Shee is a great guy to party with. And if you want to party with Daniel Shee, you're going to have to come to our next Natty State UFC watch party. DM me for details. We'll see you there, Jage. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys tapping in with yet another beautiful edition of the Bombastic Podcast. I'm trying to make sure that I didn't miss anything here. Oh, I did actually. Before, take that back. Before I get out of here, I did want to just touch on a few of the NCAA baseball projected postseason things. I know there was a few regional, or there was a Baseball America regional that had NC State paired up in the opposing regional to Arkansas. Like Arkansas was the number 5 overall seed in this projection, which is a little bit wild. It also had Nebraska as the 2 seed, which was obviously very similar to 2021. It had Arkansas lined up with the Indiana State regional, which sounds like it would be a nice little draw because it's like, oh yeah, of course we could totally beat those guys. But the 2 seed in that regional is also NC State, which is going to remind Arkansas fans of some stuff. Let me see why I had D1 Baseball's site is so hard to find stuff on. Where is the updated Field of 64? I guess they're doing it right now, like on a podcast. If anyone has the D1 Baseball Field of 64, gladly throw it in here. I feel like Arkansas was the number 2 overall seed in that. Did I make that up? I feel like Arkansas was the number 2 overall seed, and they had Little Rock as their first game. You know, I feel like it was a solid draw. At least the D1 Baseball one that I looked at. I think D1 Baseball is kind of the standard when it comes to college baseball coverage. So I think you guys should probably view it that way as well. But who knows? Before I get out of here, I did want to touch on James Strange saying I have the most depressing bedroom ever. This ain't my bedroom. This is simply my guest room that I never do anything in except whenever we're in between spaces and I needed a place to record the podcast. But it is what it is. Borgenstein says, what did I miss? Borgenstein, man, gotta, I'm sorry I moved the schedule up a little bit, but you'll just have to start from the scratch. But we missed your absence here, but we had a good time on the show today. Dropped a lot of bombs. Daniel G says he's honored at the Beers on Head podcast, as he should be. By the way, Daniel, I should go ahead and just report to you now. It's probably looking like I can get you. You can sleep in this very bedroom for the super regional. Regional, I'll have to pull some strings. We'll have to find you a place to stay, but you got a place to stay for the super regional. I'll just, instead of texting you after the show, I'll just report that now. Guys, it's been a very fun, very productive edition of the Bombastic Podcast. I appreciate you guys for joining once again. We will be back on either Saturday or Sunday. I think I probably will go live Sunday just to kind of recap the madness. We'll make it Sunday afternoon. We'll go ahead and pencil that in. But I appreciate you guys joining in. It's been another productive edition of the show. Make sure you like and subscribe, do all that stuff. Tell your friends, tell your grandmother. We appreciate